This is CBS.
We're for you, Western Wisconsin.
Some 50-mile-per-hour winds can create quite a mess. Just ask the people in the Kenwood neighborhood of Minneapolis. The cleanup from today's storm is just one of the items coming up next.
WCCO Television presents Pat Miles, Don Shelby, Mike Beerborn, and Mark Rosen. This is the 10 p.m. report.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, nearly 4 months after the body of a Honeywell employee was discovered in the company's parking ramp, a Minneapolis man has confessed to that crime and more.
The brutal murder and rape of 34-year-old Mary Foley last June shocked and frightened this community. Tonight, the man arrested is 27-year-old David Thomas. Today, he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in Mary Foley's death. For that crime, Thomas received a mandatory life sentence and will be eligible for parole in about 18 years. But Thomas also pleaded guilty to 7 other assaults on Twin Cities women this summer. And for those crimes, he will be sentenced October 18th. The judge has indicated Thomas will be sentenced to a total of 18 to 20 years to be served immediately after the murder sentence. Now, that means that David Thomas will likely be in prison for the next 35 years. Mike Walsher has more on today's court proceedings and the people directly affected.
Thomas says it's easier to plead guilty now than face a series of trials later on. In court, the calm 27-year-old spoke of the killing in a matter-of-fact tone. Quote, "I proceeded to force her down, take her clothes off, and rape her. I twisted a piece of clothing around her neck to prevent shouting." "Why?" asked the prosecutor. "Why did you kill her?" Thomas had no answer. The murder and other assaults led the Attorney General to form a task force on sexual violence against women. Tonight, the director says that group will recommend positive changes.
How do we get better control over rapists through the criminal justice system, through the juvenile justice system? And then later on in October, we'll come out with preliminary recommendations dealing with questions of education, how do you prevent rape, and what's out there in Minnesota for victims of sexual assault, and is it adequate?
Mary Foley's mother and sisters spent the day looking over donations to a fund to fight sexual violence. The family issued a statement saying, in part, "Mary suffered greatly in those last few minutes of her life. We will never be able to forget Thomas's cowardly and selfish act." The Foleys say he should never be paroled.
We sort of feel that life should be life. I feel he should never be out in the streets again, ever.
And since the murder here last June, the Foleys say they live in fear. They don't go out at night. They don't stay home alone. They don't go into parking ramps. Such is the personal impact of Mary Foley's murder. I'm Mike Walsher, WCCO Television News, Minneapolis.
To date, $14,000 has been raised for the Mary Foley Fund. That money will be used to fight violence against women. If you would like to donate, checks can be sent to the Star Tribune Credit Union, 425 Portland Avenue, Minneapolis. The zip code is 55488.
Tonight, authorities in South Carolina are still searching for why a 19-year-old man walked into an elementary school and opened fire. The unidentified gunman quietly walked into the crowded cafeteria and without saying a word, he aimed at the students who cried out. An 8-year-old girl was killed. 8 other students were injured. Teachers reportedly tried to help their students. 2 of the teachers were seriously wounded.
The third-grade teacher was getting students under the desk, wounded students, pushing them in the desk, pushing them out the window.
Parents raced to the Oakland Elementary School as the news of the shooting spread. Tonight, police say they can find no connection between the gunman and the school. He was taken into custody shortly after the rampage. A White Bear Lake daycare center reopened today. It closed last week after an outbreak of an uncommon bacterial disease. 60 children showed symptoms of HUS, an ailment that can be life-threatening. 4 were hospitalized, but today, 26 youngsters were back in class. Parents, staff, and the children seemed relieved to be back at their routine at the Sunrise Daycare Center. All the children are expected to recover.
More than 60 parents turned out tonight in the northwest suburbs to complain that their children are being poorly taught. They attend schools at the Anoka-Hennepin district. 7% of the district's classes have 30 kids or more per elementary teacher. Administrators say they are the victim of population trends and state laws. Alan Cox reports.
Anoka-Hennepin has enough classrooms for its students, but it can't afford enough classroom teachers. Some elementary teachers face 35 pupils. The crowding exists even though the district cut some programs and even though residents approved a tax hike. Administrators blame state laws that put the district at a disadvantage because it's mostly residential. It doesn't have a lot of factories or other business to tax. Tonight, parents from 8 schools charge their children will suffer for lack of individual attention.
The ideal class size is more like 15 to 20, and that should be the goal we're working toward, not just hanging in around 30, and over 30 is outrageous.
It cost me a lot to move from Minneapolis to Coon Rapids as it is, and I really don't want to go in search of another home in another school district. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that my kids have the best leg up possible.
We do continue to look at further budgetary items that we can cut and shift, and we look for other solutions.
Parents say they'll help push for changes next year in the legislature, and administrators here say that Anoka-Hennepin will join 41 other school districts in a lawsuit against the state, charging that the way education money is divided up in Minnesota is unfair and unconstitutional. Alan Cox, WCCO Television News, Coon Rapids.
Administrators say crowded classrooms may get worse this year as more families move into the district. The state's AFL-CIO convention in Rochester provided a friendly setting for Walter Mondale today. Members gave him a standing ovation, and Mondale called on them to give Michael Dukakis and Skip Humphrey the nod in November. The convention also produced a political first, Minnesota's 2 Senate candidates showing up at the same place at the same time. Once at the speaker's podium, Humphrey accused Durenberger of opposing a minimum wage hike, and then Durenberger shot back.
If Hubert Humphrey were there, you'd get that vote for closure, and I'd vote for that minimum wage. Absolutely.
I'm going to support an increase in the minimum wage, and I'm not going to support a substandard or training wage to go with it.
The convention also handed out specially printed flyers today which show labor's endorsement of Humphrey on one side and Dukakis on the other. And by the way, just as Durenberger was speaking, promising today to vote for the minimum wage hike, the U.S. Senate was busy in Washington setting the bill aside until next session. Today, residents of a North Minneapolis group home for developmentally disabled adults were moved to new facilities around the state. This after state officials abruptly closed the home Friday night, saying residents of the Valor James home were in imminent danger. Home officials have voluntarily surrendered their license and are investigating reports that staff members used drugs and drank alcohol while on duty. A supervisor at the home told state officials late last week that twice she had been threatened by 2 different staff workers and feared for her life there. The supervisor also told officials that at one point she fled in fear, leaving 5 residents unsupervised. 2 employees have since been suspended.
Canadian track star Ben Johnson pulled off one of the most celebrated feats of the Olympic Games in Seoul. 3 days ago, he won the 100-meter dash, setting a world record and winning the gold medal. But tonight, the International Olympic Committee disqualified Johnson and stripped him of his gold medal. Johnson tested positive for using anabolic steroids. Later in sports, Mark Rosen with more on this and what it means to the American Carl Lewis, who came in second in that race. The countdown for the shuttle launch is underway tonight. It began 7 this morning, Twin Cities time. The launch is set for Thursday morning at 8:59. Among the crew members on board, Minnesota's Pinky Nelson. This will be the first manned space flight since the Challenger disaster nearly 3 years ago. Businesses closed early, and flags flew at half-staff in Plains, Georgia today in honor of Billy Carter. The funeral was held today. Billy, brother of former President Jimmy Carter, died yesterday of pancreatic cancer. President Reagan was in New York today giving his 7th and final speech before the United Nations. Speaking to the opening of the General Assembly, Mr. Reagan said the prospects for world peace have improved because of improved relations between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Tonight, NSP is working on restoring the last of the power outages caused by last night's high winds. The 50-mile-per-hour gust knocked out power to 7,000 customers scattered across the metro area. St. Paul seems to be the hardest hit. There were more than 150 calls to city crews about downed trees and branches, including the one that fell on Ada Conti's car for the 2nd time in 2 months.
I'm upset. The park board was out here and chainsawed it off my car, and 2 months later it has crashed on my car again.
The winds also knocked out the front window pane of a University Avenue car dealership, but by midday that had been replaced with a new one. No serious injuries from the storm to report. Tonight, all that remains to be cleaned up is the 10 stories of scaffolding the winds knocked over on Douglas Avenue last night. Construction workers had secured the scaffolding for the night at the Kenwood condominium complex, but the high winds were too strong. sending part of the scaffolding down on top of a neighbor's house. It tore out a chunk of wall, and some of the scaffolding fell into the upstairs bathroom. Tonight in Dimension, the personal side of an organization which provides relief in times of trouble. Famine in Africa, house fires in the Twin Cities, hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico.
We're talking about the Red Cross, and it is a group which WCCO Television joined up with this past week to help raise money for the people who were so hard hit by Hurricane Gilbert. The area which we are targeting for assistance is Jamaica, where about 80% of the homes were damaged by the hurricane winds. It is already a place where many are underprivileged. Through donations from people in the Twin Cities, WCCO and the Red Cross hope to allow many Jamaicans to rebuild. In the Twin Cities alone, there are 6,500 volunteers and more than 50 full-time staffers. Those people are part of the national network trying to help hurricane victims and keep the other Red Cross efforts going as well.
And tonight we're going to look at the Red Cross through the eyes of someone who works for the organization. And through her, we can learn a lot about the kind of people who do Red Cross work. Here's Mike Strand.
Each morning, Kathy Oberlin goes about her daily routine like a lot of working people these days, but with a distinct difference. She knows at any time her job could command her to the heart of a disaster anywhere in the country, deliberately standing in harm's way for the sake of others.
Well, you don't get paid a lot, so that you have to be willing to work hard and for the satisfaction of the job.
Such satisfaction sent Kathy to Texas last week, driving an emergency van for the American Red Cross into the face of Hurricane Gilbert. It was her first experience with a possible natural disaster.
I was ready and willing and able to go and help, but to know that there wasn't anybody that needed the help at that time was gratifying, to know that there wasn't the victims there.
A former Red Cross volunteer, the 31-year-old Oberlin today is a CPR and first aid supervisor for the Minneapolis area chapter, one of 55 staffers and 6,500 local volunteers, many of whom have been on the phones the past week with hurricane victims. On her own time, Kathy continues to help disaster victims.
It keeps it exciting. Again, it's part of that willingness to help people that makes me feel okay about that being pulled up and sent off.
The Red Cross is not without its problems, and one of the most pressing, according to Oberlin, is the slump in volunteerism. Having people not only willing to help, but those properly prepared to help.
And that wasn't always the case. You know, at one point, when I started here 5.5, 6 years ago, we didn't have near as much trouble, it seemed, to find people that were willing to spend that extra time to help out. So that is something we struggle with.
Not breathing. Has pulse. Call 911.
But Oberlin does find it encouraging that more people are interested in CPR, for example, if only for their own protection or that of their families. And even if she doesn't inspire the same passion she has for helping others, she's provided them skills that may someday save another life.
To be able to know that what I'm doing is really helping people in their lives. It's a distinct reward away from the monetary reward to know that I'm helping people.
I'm Mike Strand, WCCO Television News, Minneapolis.
And now a few extra notes about the fundraising effort for Jamaica hurricane victims. Banners went up today at both the WCCO newsrooms, both Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul. Donations can be brought to either location. They ask that you only send checks, however. You can send donations to the Twin Cities Red Cross, Post Office Box 11842, St. Paul, Minnesota 55111. Our goal since the start has been $44,000. We'll keep you posted on the progress. Mark Strell.
Mark, yes, and here on a beautiful day.
Wasn't it fantastic?
Oh, terrific.
We should squeeze another one out tomorrow before Wednesday. A few clouds roll in. I don't know if you were out tonight. Beautiful full moon.
74 something too tonight.
Yeah.
It was warm.
In fact, yeah, it has been in the 70s throughout much of the early evening. But a beautiful, well, nearly full moon. The full moon, the harvest moon officially was last night. But if you've been looking at those rings around the moon tonight, we have a few phone calls. What the heck are those, Mark? That's actually the light of the moon refracting through some of the ice crystals in the upper atmosphere. A little weather trivia for you to know tonight. Clear skies right now in the Twin Cities. We have 64 degrees. Not too bad, huh? Relative humidity, 73%. Winds out of the northwest at 9. And the dew point, 55 degrees, and the barometric pressure is rising. Our high today, believe it or not, all the way up to 78 degrees. Of course, if you're out today, you believe it, you're probably out enjoying it. That's a whole 12 degrees above normal for this date. Morning low at 57. We did pick up 13/100ths of an inch of rainfall earlier this morning with a shower that rumbled across the Twin Cities. Sunrise tomorrow at 7:06 and sun sets at 7:02. The latest 5-state satellite picture shows nearly clear skies everywhere in the state. A few clouds working their way in through the Dakotas and Nebraska, and that really won't affect us because it looks like we'll have a pretty nice weather again tomorrow as a high-pressure system continues to funnel down some pretty nice weather for us. Temperatures as of last hour, 48 degrees in Duluth, 51 at International Falls, even 64 at Fargo. The warmer temperatures hanging on here in the south, 68 degrees at Rochester. Tonight we should bottom out low 50s or so. Lower 40s in the northern half of the state, and that's about 10 degrees above normal. So enjoy the mild nights and the mild daytime temperatures while they abound. Gorgeous day across the nation. Nary a shower anywhere. A few showers in the northwestern portion of the United States, Oregon and Washington. About the only uncomfortable weather today was in the Florida Peninsula, where temperatures in the 90s. Fort Myers, Florida, up to 95 degrees today, and Apalachicola, a new record at 92, with some humid, muggy conditions down there, but as you can see, clear skies and pretty dry conditions across the entire nation. That will be true for us here in the Twin Cities tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine for us. The frontal system will push further down to the south. Really won't affect us at all. Most of the showers and thunderstorms in the Rocky Mountain West, where they could use some more moisture out there. And the temperatures nicking the 70 line here in the Twin Cities. You're doing any traveling up to the north, you'll run into 60s, and the coolest spot in the nation tomorrow, right around War Road, International Falls, and the North Shore, where they should peak out into the 50s. Our forecast tonight for the Twin Cities, mostly clear and mild. Look out your window. Enjoy the moon tonight. Low of about 53 degrees. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10. Mostly sunny, breezy, and mild all the way up to very close to 70 degrees tomorrow. Again, the winds, rather gusty at times, 10 to 20 out of the northwest. And clear to partly cloudy skies on Tuesday night, a low of about 45 degrees as we begin to cool down. And on Wednesday, that's when the clouds roll back in. Chance of showers in the afternoon, a high of 65. The extended forecast calls for partly sunny skies each day. We'll cool back down to where we ought to be. Temperatures in the mid-60s and overnight lows in the mid-40s. So typical autumn-like conditions.
Beautiful, too. Love this time of year.
Me too.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Up next, in sports, what's wrong with Wade Wilson? And more on track star Ben Johnson, who tonight lost his gold. I talk about the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, and sometimes that's joked about, but it's sure in this Olympic Games.
The most dramatic day, certainly, in Seoul, Korea. Tonight, Greg Louganis winning his second gold medal in the platform diving, the last of his 10 jumps.
And he nailed it.
He hit it big.
Boom.
The other side of the coin, Ben Johnson left Seoul tonight without his gold medal after testing positive for steroid use. Johnson beat Carl Lewis in Saturday's celebrated 100-meter showdown, breaking the world record to boot. But his post-race urine test showed traces of a very dangerous anabolic steroid. Members of the Canadian camp claim Johnson's sample must have been mishandled, or he must have taken the banned substance by accident. But Olympic officials standing by their test results stripped Johnson of his gold medal and awarded it to Carl Lewis. Maybe the infighting of the Olympic Committee will decide that. All the pennant races, meanwhile, have been decided except the American League East, where the Boston Red Sox appear to be spurting, then sputtering, then spurting, then sputtering to the title. With a full moon at Fenway tonight, it's fitting that the Sox were in their sputtering mode. Wes Gardner, one of these Sox unsung heroes, unleashes a wild pitch, scoring Tony Fernandez for the Blue Jays. Toronto all over Boston tonight, 11-1, so Boston's magic number still at 3 because Detroit defeated Cleveland 6-3, Tigers trailing by 3.5. The Yankees barely hanging on, defeating Baltimore that final 5-4. It was standing room only outside the Vikings training room today as the battered and bruised lined up to see trainer Fred Zamberletti. Unfortunately for a few of the Vikings, a dip in the whirlpool wasn't enough to heal their wounds. Quarterback Wade Wilson paid the price for his run for glory. His touchdown jaunt gave the Vikings the lead, but his jarring collision in the end zone separated Wilson's left shoulder. It's not the most severe type of separation, but it's severe enough to keep him out of at least the next 2 weeks and probably longer. That means Rich Gannon will back up Tommy Kramer in Miami on Sunday. The most serious of the injured, center Kirk Loudermilk, whose broken thumb will sideline him from 4 to 6 weeks. The others on the list, excluding Wade Wilson, have a better than average chance of playing against the Dolphins. All of these Vikings injured in a very physical game. Physical play was the only way when the Vikes faced the Eagles yesterday. Ironically, however, this game of physical football was won by the smallest Viking of them all. 170-pound Chuck Nelson split the uprights with 25 seconds remaining, making amends for a missed field goal 3 minutes earlier.
I try real hard just to worry about what I got to do and not worry about whether or not so-and-so's fighting this guy and if this guy's getting beat or if this guy's manhandling somebody else. And, you know, I just try and pay attention to my part of it. And like I said, I'm aware of the flow of the game, but just try and take care of Mr. Nelson.
A star was born Saturday when the Gophers' Chris Gators broke loose against Northern Illinois. His spectacular punt return kept the Gophers in this game.
Chris Gators!
His spectacular fourth-quarter reception won it.
Gators stays with a touchdown!
Great play, great play. A bounce off.
It was a great one. Minnesota star of the past few seasons, tailback Darrell Thompson, sprained his ankle in the game, but he's been healing quickly. Darrell ran gingerly in practice today and should be able to play in the Gophers' Big Ten opener Saturday at Purdue. In the National Football League tonight, a wild one. Denver led this game, Pat Miles, 24-0 at the half, but your Broncos, it's 27-27.
I don't like them anymore. I don't like the Broncos anymore.
You always loved the Broncos.
No, I don't anymore, though. I like the Vikings.
You believe her?
Politics. Yeah. All right, Mark. Thank you very much.
Now coming up next, the language lesson boom in Minnesota, from French for fun to Spanish for police officers in Willmar. We'll have 2 reports in just a moment.
5 car dealers and a leasing company consistently promise more after-the-sale service than all the competition. You may already know us as the Plain Talk Dealers, where a higher standard of service is part of every deal. As a group, we are the Medcore dealers. Individually, we go by these well-respected names: Rosedale Chevrolet, Freeway Ford, Prestige Lincoln Mercury, Brookdale Ford, Suburban Chevrolet, and 20th Century Leasing. Medcore, your Plain Talk dealers.
On September 27th and 28th, the Twins meet the Oakland A's. What will happen? Will this series be better than last year's World Series? Does Oakland remember what a World Series is? Catch it live on cable TV for only $7.95 a game. Call your local cable company for details. And watch the Twins cut the A's down to size.
Our view of foreign language is changing, away from the days when many in this country thought that everybody else had to learn our language. More young people are taking foreign language in the schools, and universities such as Minnesota are requiring incoming students to have at least 2 years of another country's language.
Adults are also getting in the act, some just for fun, some out of necessity. The first of 2 reports, and adults and foreign language. We're going to take you into the lives of police in Willmar, Minnesota. Right across the street from Torgay's Holiday Inn sits the Elm Lane Trailer Court, home to many of the town's 1,500 Hispanics.
They have come for years to work in the fields. Now they're coming to stay in Willmar. This is maybe their streets of gold or whatever.
The Hispanics may not have encountered streets of gold since they moved north from Texas, but they have encountered the law. Police Chief Todd Miller says although Hispanics make up 8% of the town, they account for 20% of the crime. And not all of the newcomers speak English.
If someone is speaking another language and they may be saying, tell the officer the right answer, they may be saying, you jump in from the left.
So far, no officer's been jumped, but many are nervous.
It can make you afraid. I was afraid the other night at an incident where we had to get out of a place just for our own safety and call for some backup.
When Terry Albers joined the police force 10 years ago, he never thought he'd need to be bilingual. Now he's one of over 40 law enforcement officers learning a new language to meet a new problem.
The Hispanics don't understand about the Anglos, and the Anglos don't understand about the Hispanics.
Many of the new words are geared to law enforcement, but some lessons concern more basic street talk.
I mean, you think the law is not listening to you because they can understand you, but if they can really understand Spanish, they will, you know, understand you, and you will not be mad.
Augusto Anderson hopes his classes will prepare Anglo officers to better understand the signs of the times, but it will take time.
What can you say?
Ba, be, bo, boo. Those are the phonetics.
65 000.
Bravo!
Arlene Mann doesn't use a textbook to teach French in Minneapolis. Instead, she relies on soft lights and a few sleight-of-hand tricks to capture her students' imagination.
People relax, people have fun, people immerse themselves to the point where they forget that there's anything else going on, that this is really a language class, and suddenly, in this short period of time, they're speaking the language.
Je voudrais 39 ans.
Oui. Et où est-ce que vous allez habiter? Où est-ce que vous habiterez?
Well, we call it class, but it's not the usual class because it's totally non-threatening.
Margaret Lydell is studying French, so she'll enjoy Paris more on her next vacation. She teaches at the Minneapolis Technical Institute, but in this class, she's not a teacher. She's Simone, a famous socialist politician with a lover on the side.
Femme politique.
And when organization development consultant Jerry Francheri enters class, he's a new man.
I'm Jacques Briere, and I'm a Le Pompier. I'm a fireman.
Arlene Mann says the fantasy characters, puppets, and gypsy fortunes are key to her super learning method. Mann claims the method allows students to learn languages in as little as 12 days. These students have had a 7-week intensive course, and although they're far from fluent, students say they've had fun and they've learned a lot.
I feel like I can survive very easily, and I'm certain that I can understand quite a bit.
Ça c'est magnifique, hein? Quel mariage!
And this note about varying prices of learning a language, 44 Willmar police will pay a total of $1,800 for 5 months, and the course we just showed you costs about $800 a person for 7 weeks.
And there's another even more intense course, which includes a trip to Cancun or the French Riviera, but that's $2,000 per person for 2 weeks, airfare not included. Or you could be like Pat and me, and we're bilingual. We speak English not very well some of the time, and Minnesotan. And you can do that for $6 by buying this book, How to Talk Minnesotan. Not bad.
That's your language. I was wondering about that.
You bet. All right, that's where we're going to leave it for this Monday, September 26th.
Until tomorrow, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Donahue.
Weekdays on Channel 4.
Good morning. This is meteorologist Sherry Ackerman. Glance out your window this morning. Take a gander at that beautiful harvest moon. It will not set until 9:30 this morning. A lot of high clouds are moving into the region this morning. They are going to provide an effective filter on our sunshine today, but by tomorrow, some more rain is in our forecast. Today, though, it's going to be gorgeous out, partly to mostly sunny, a little cooler than yesterday, a high of 68 with a north wind at 5 to 15. Mostly cloudy tonight, a low of 47. Showers and rain tomorrow with a high of 63.
Have you ever said, it will take a lot of convincing to make me believe that? I know I have. That was also the reaction of Thomas when he heard the news that Christ had risen from the dead. It would take a lot of convincing to persuade him to believe in the resurrection. The proof of Christ's resurrection is overwhelming. The Bible records the many historical accounts of Christ's appearances to his disciples. In the resurrection, there is hope and comfort from our Christ-based faith. And may that hope and comfort of the resurrection of Christ be yours by faith as you live today.
What makes a rainbow bend? Where does the universe end? To know the world from A to Z.
Discover science and technology.
a dinosaur. What's on the ocean floor? To know the world from A to Z.
Astronomy, biology, chemistry, zoology, science and technology.
It's fun, you see. Why is the sun so warm? What makes a winter storm? And what's a quadruped? Why is the planet Mars red? You'll find there's lots to know, exploring as you go. To know the world from A to Z.
Discover science and technology. Astronomy, biology, chemistry, zoology, science and technology. It's fun, you'll see.
A public service message from the National Science Foundation.
Now, more than ever.
I don't know how to talk to men unless, you know, I'm seducing.
There is practically no such thing as an airline pilot who doesn't drink.
Sexual abuse has risen 1,000%.
Everyone is afraid of getting it.
Because no one wants to die.
We as a nation are abusing these drugs.
We have an epidemic of bulimia in our young children in this country.
Ovarian cancer is very much a silent disease.
You can't afford to miss a minute. Our Magazine.
Our Magazine, now at 3 on Channel 4.
We're for you, Minnesota.
Ben Johnson has left Seoul without his gold medal after testing positive for steroids. The Space Shuttle astronauts face a busy day counting down to Discovery's launch. And in Los Angeles, a wild celebration as the Dodgers make the playoffs. This is the CBS Morning News. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charles Osgood.
And I'm Faith Daniels. It's Tuesday, September 27th. Leading our news this morning, sprinter Ben Johnson of Canada is on his way home from the Olympics this morning in disgrace. Johnson was stripped of his world record victory in the 100-meter dash after a shocking revelation. Drug tests indicate he used an anabolic steroid sometime before the race. Johnson's gold medal has now been awarded to Carl Lewis, the American who finished second. In Seoul, Mark Phillips reports on the Olympic scandal.
Ben Johnson's fall from grace was a very public event. He was escorted through Seoul Airport by a phalanx of security guards and a crush of cameras. He said nothing. As he was leaving, the International Olympic Committee was condemning him for cheating and stripping him of his Olympic glory.
Despite the disappointment in respect to the athletes, they're out. They're disqualified. The Olympic movement will not tolerate doping.
Canadian officials argued that Johnson had been set up, that as he warmed up for Saturday's big race, someone had switched drinking bottles on him. The steroid later found in his urine sample, the Canadians say, came from the bottle.
So he received the bottle from someone he doesn't remember who. Ben is a very trusting person, and he drank from the bottle.
The IOC rejected that argument. The steroid was found and Ben was out. The news rocked the Olympics. It was the talk of the athletes' training track.
You see, so these guys are ashamed to the sport. They should just be eliminated from it. That's what I think.
I am surprised, but I'm not too shocked, you know, because the guy's too incredible.
The IOC says the Ben Johnson affair is a black mark for the games, but that its action in disqualifying him is a sign they're serious about drugs. The athletes say there's still a long way to go.
Geez, you got human growth hormone, you got all kind of stuff, red blood improvement. Steroids is nothing anymore. I mean, that's just itty-bitty stuff.
For the IOC, the drug scandal casts a deep shadow over these games. For Ben Johnson, it puts all of his achievements in doubt. For Canada, which had taken Johnson very much to heart, elation has turned to pain. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Seoul.
And 2 American swimmers are in trouble with the law in South Korea. Gold medal winners Doug Geertsen and Troy Dalby went to a police station today for questioning. They admit they stole a marble lion's head from a Seoul nightclub over the weekend. An American official says it was a prank gone berserk, and today the swimmers publicly apologized.
We are both very sorry that we've embarrassed the United States Olympic team, the American people, our friends, and our families. I want to apologize, especially for the Korean people, and hope that our actions do not jeopardize the positive relations between the people of the United States and our gracious host in Seoul.
Angry South Koreans are demanding that the 2 Americans be sent to jail. Dalby and Geertsen were members of the U.S. team that set a world record in the 800-meter freestyle relay.
In Florida this morning, the countdown for Thursday's space shuttle launch is going smoothly, and as Bruce Hall reports, the Kennedy Space Center is bustling with excitement and last-minute preparations.
Flying their sleek NASA jets from their home base in Houston, the 5 Discovery astronauts arrived at the Florida spaceport, anxious to begin America's first manned spaceflight in 32 months.
We cannot wait to do this, and we are ready. And this is a tribute to tens of thousands of people that have put in an awful lot of work over the last 2.5 years to get us to this point.
3, 2, 1, mark.
With the launch on go, hundreds of controllers will be at their consoles for the duration of the countdown.
We're looking forward to doing this job, doing it right, and then launching on time.
After the Challenger disaster, it is clear NASA will take no chances in trying to meet Thursday's scheduled launch.
I think this flight will probably be one of the safest ever went off because nobody's going to be cutting any corners, nobody is going to be taking any chances with safety, and that's the way it should have been all the way through.
NASA will be keeping a close eye on the weather. Storms delayed the astronauts' arrival, and more rain could arrive on Thursday, launch day.
We're going to keep our fingers crossed on the weather. We know that there's maybe about just based on historical statistics, about a 60% chance that we'll go. We hope that the front comes through, and that'll give us an even greater chance.
After a rendezvous with their families, the astronauts now face 2 days of troubleshooting and final preparations. Bruce Hall, CBS News at the Kennedy Space Center.
White House and congressional negotiators have cleared the way this morning for the nation's first major welfare reform in 53 years. The negotiators agreed on a $3.3 billion plan aimed at moving people who are on welfare off and into jobs. Under the plan, a fifth of all welfare recipients would be enrolled in state education and training programs by 1995. The 5 million Americans who earn the minimum wage are going to have to wait until next year at the earliest to get their first increase since 1981. Senate Democrats tried to get a minimum wage hike, but finally gave up the fight. Phil Jones has the story.
To appreciate this story, you have to keep in mind it's time for the 88 campaign games. Time to go for the political gold. If you're a Democrat, you're on the offensive, trying to embarrass the Republicans. If you're a Republican, you're playing defense. Now that you understand what's going on here, we take you to the Senate floor, where Democrats are on the offensive with a proposal to raise the minimum wage from $3.35 to $4.55 an hour.
These workers are looking for encouragement. They work for a minimum wage, and we should at least give them a minimum of hope.
Republicans want a smaller increase and a sub-minimum training wage, which GOP presidential candidate George Bush favors.
If we took his approach without a training wage, whose jobs are going to be lost? 200,000 to 1 million jobs. They'd be the unskilled, the least advantaged people in our society. Those who need the chance the most would lose their jobs.
Democrats block the Republican proposals. Republicans launch a filibuster. Finally, frustrated Democrats throw in the towel. They lose the Senate battle, but are convinced they have won a campaign issue.
What's so important to you there, Mr. Senators? Why don't you stay 2 or 3 more days and give a sense of economic justice to the 16 million people who've been left out of this alleged prosperity that we have had over the period of the last 8 years?
So the minimum wage legislation is dead for this year. But stay tuned for more campaign fun and games. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Well, the Northwest is finally getting some rain. Mark McEwen's here to tell us about it.
Only a month late, better late than never. Take a look at the satellite. Yesterday, Washington and Oregon got a lot of rain, and those clouds are expanding over the northern Rockies this morning. Scattered clouds around the Denver area. No rain is being reported. Rest of the country, clear skies, and for later on today, isn't going to feel much like autumn for the lower half of the country. Look for bright and sunny skies, temperatures in the 80s and 90s for later on today. It's going to be just beautiful, and what goes along with those nice temperatures, low humidity, so it's going to be a nice day. Rain in Washington and Oregon should be reaching into the Dakotas a little bit later on this afternoon. Out there on the West Coast, as you can see, 92 for a high in Las Vegas and 70s in California, but basically the lower tier of states, 80s and 90s, a beautiful Tuesday. A lot of people owe me money for giving you that good forecast for today. That's a good look. Quick look at the national forecast. Let's take a look at your weather.
Good morning. This is meteorologist Sherry Ackerman. It's going to be partly to mostly sunny today with a high of 68. Tonight's low 47, cloudy with showers and rain tomorrow. Highs tomorrow only 63.
These last 2 days have been just gorgeous, and I think we may squeeze one more day out of this nice weather. Keep your fingers crossed.
Sounds good to a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yes,
Thanks,
it does.
Mark. CBS Morning News continues for this Tuesday, September 27th. And coming up, the Los Angeles Dodgers lock up the division championship.
This portion of the CBS Morning News is sponsored by Tandy Computers, because there is no better value, only at Radio Shack.
We save $200 at Radio Shack on a great family computer, the Tandy 1000HX, on sale for $499.
And with this color monitor, the system was still less than $799.
It's IBM PC compatible and comes with easy-to-use DeskMate software.
So the kids can do homework, and I can compose letters or music.
And the $200 savings helps me balance our budget.
The sale price Tandy 1000HX with software only $499. Complete system with color monitor less than $799. Only at Radio Shack.
Fans, please.
Mr. Garfield, welcome to Embassy Suites Hotel.
My room.
Here you get a suite for about the price of a room at most Marriotts or Hyatts.
Beautiful. Don't change a thing.
The living room, sir.
Love what you've done with this room.
The bedroom.
This is great. I need my space.
And of course you'll want to take advantage of Embassy Suites' free breakfast.
Food.
Served every morning.
At Embassy Suites, you don't have to be a fat cat to enjoy the sweet life.
I resemble that remark.
If they could see you now out on a punch-up cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate Carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Will it be colder in January, wetter this spring, hotter in July? Well, we can't be sure, but we can count on the 1989 Minnesota Weather Guide calendar. Hi, I'm Mike Fairborn, Chief Meteorologist, Weather Center 4. Our 12th annual Weather Guide is a beautiful way to follow the weather and its effect on nature. Purchase yours at supermarkets, drug and bookstores throughout the state, or write to this address. They make great gifts, and the profits benefit the Freshwater Foundation and the Science Museum of Minnesota.
In business news this morning, word that the Eastman Kodak Company is going to pay a $200 million settlement to millions of people who bought the company's instant picture cameras but can't use them. A Chicago judge has approved this settlement. It means that the more than 3 million people are going to get up to $70 apiece in cash and coupons. Kodak was forced to stop making instant cameras and film after losing a patent dispute with Polaroid. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 5.5 points to close at 2,085. In Tokyo, stock prices were up, and in European trading, the dollar is holding steady. In London, the price of gold is $397 an ounce. That's up $1.80. And silver is up 4 cents to $6.14.
The drug scandal at the Olympics has overshadowed one American's dive into the history books. Jim Lampley has that and the rest of the sports.
Good morning. While the news of Ben Johnson's steroid use tainted the Olympic day in Seoul, American diver Greg Louganis reminded the world that every dark cloud has a silver lining. Louganis came from behind on his final platform dive yesterday to beat 14-year-old Zhang Mi of China for the gold medal. With that first-place finish and his gold in the springboard event, Louganis became the first diver in history to win the double gold in back-to-back Olympics. The United States women's basketball team will get a shot at the gold. They defeated the Soviet Union yesterday to earn the right to face Yugoslavia in the final. The Los Angeles Dodgers won the right to take on the Mets for the National League pennant when they beat the Padres last night to clinch the National League West. San Diego took the lead in the first inning when Randy Reddy tagged L.A. starter Fernando Valenzuela with a 2-run homer. But the Dodgers tied it up with 2 solo home runs of their own. Then in the 8th, Mickey Hatcher's 1-out single to left scored Alfredo Griffin for the go-ahead run. Jay Howell came on in the 9th for the final 3 outs, and the Dodgers took home their 4th division title in the past 8 years.
We went into this season and nobody gave us much of a chance, so for all the doubters out there, we pulled together as a team, and we just hope we can go a little farther this time.
Okay, it's a great day for the entire organization and a great day for the city of Los Angeles.
The city of Boston is still awaiting its great day as the Red Sox lost last night to Toronto. Their magic number to clinch the American League East is still at 3. The Los Angeles Rangers conceded 24 points to the Denver Broncos last night before Jay Schrader brought them back in his inaugural start for the Silver and Black. John Elway and company ran all over the Raider defensive line in the first half, while Denver's defense held L.A. scoreless. But Schrader came back strong in the third quarter and connected with fullback Steve Smith for 2 Raider touchdowns. Marcus Allen would run for another, and a Chris Barr field goal in the final seconds of regulation tied the game. Then Barr split the uprights again in overtime to give Los Angeles a big come-from-behind win. The victory put the Raiders into a 3-way tie for first in the AFC West, while Denver, the defending AFC champion, fell to 1 win and 3 losses. I'm Jim Lampley, and that's sports this morning.
And the CBS Morning News continues this Tuesday, September 27th.
On the CBS Morning News, here's a look at your weather. The southern 2/3 of the nation will have a beautiful late September day as those warm temperatures will continue. Meanwhile, it's a different picture from the northwest coastline over to the high plains where showers and thunderstorms can be expected.
Oh, here she is.
So I got up and walked out.
You left work early?
I told him I couldn't miss my kid's game again.
She's crazy. She's brave. What is that?
They call it peanut butter. You cut out of work early, then give her that brand? Lighten up, guys. They're all the same.
Yeah, and the sky is purple.
Smell, Jif. Hey, Jif smells more
Like fresh roasted peanuts.
Oh, if this stuff tastes as good as it smells, I'm in trouble.
Oh, I'm in trouble. Jif, there's the peanut.
Great stuff.
Well, read it.
So I'm not done to read. You're close.
For more fresh roasted peanut taste, choosy moms choose Jif.
Well, this tastes just like fresh brewed to me. I can't believe it.
That's what people have been saying in fine restaurants. But what would happen if you secretly switched Folgers Crystals for the fresh brewed coffee in your home? Let's listen.
He's going to know. I'm never going to pull this off. He's going to taste it and he's going to say, this isn't your coffee.
When I found out, I was totally shocked. Says, Terry, I said, the coffee smells good. I'll be down in a second. It was instant coffee, and I thought it was fresh brewed coffee.
It tastes absolutely like what we drink when it's fresh brewed. I seriously didn't notice a difference, and here I said I was a gourmet.
It smelled like brewed coffee. You know how it wafts through the air and comes through the hallway?
Folgers Crystals, so dark and rich. Why don't you try the switch?
She did it to me this time. She got me.
Well,
she got me.
6 months ago, this guy didn't even know his own name.
That's right.
Bullies would come up to him on the beach, throw him a few questions. He'd be totally humiliated.
It was a bad scene.
But then, I started him on a regular program of Jeopardy. We started out light, working on answers, hitting the button. Soon he had mastered the audio daily double. He was an inspiration to us all.
Someday, I'll make it the final Jeopardy.
Sure you will, kid.
Weekdays on Channel 4.
If you're just joining us, here are today's top stories. Canada is reacting with shock today to the drug scandal at the Olympics. Canadian Ben Johnson was stripped of his gold medal in the 100-meter dash after testing positive for steroids. 2 days before the Discovery launch,